Hello, fourth graders. Today, these are objectives for language arts. I can describe what similes, metaphors, idioms, proverbs, and adages are, and I can identify figurative language in the text, the Hope Chest. Let's go ahead and start with a simile. A simile is when two things are compared using the word like or as. Some examples of a simile are she is as happy as a clam. There's the as. Busy as a bee. The tall girl looked out like a sore thumb. You'll notice that the girl's being compared to a clam. Somebody is being compared to a bee. The girl is being compared to a sore thumb. All three of these examples are when two things are being compared using the words like or as. A metaphor is a figure of speech that says one thing is the same as something else. Here are some examples. She is a happy clam. She's drowning in a sea of grief. You're a couch potato. My brother is a monkey. My desk is a rat's nest. Let's start with this first example. She is a happy clam. When you say somebody is a happy clam, are they really a happy clam? No, it's a figure of speech. It just means they're really happy. She's drowning in a sea of grief. If you say, for example, my sister is drowning in a sea of grief because she got a B on her test. Is she really drowning? No, it's a figure of speech saying that she's really unhappy. Okay, let's move on. An idiom. An idiom is a figure of speech. Idioms are expressions that mean something different than the words in the phrase might indicate. I think that should say that the phrase might indicate. Here are some examples. Have you ever heard, don't chicken out? He's got ants in his pants. We're in hot water. Drop me a line. She gave me a dirty look. You really put your foot in your mouth? He passed the test by the skin of his teeth. All of these are examples of idioms or figures of speech. If you say, he's got ants in his pants, does he really have ants in his pants? No, it means that he's really nervous. We're in hot water. If you say we're in hot water, that generally means we're in big trouble. Drop me a line. That usually means drop me a message. She gave me a dirty look. That means she scowled. A person scowled. All of these are figures of speech or idioms. They mean something completely different than the phrase might indicate. The next figure of speech is a proverb, and we actually haven't talked about this year. This is new. A proverb is a short, wise saying that offers advice or wisdom about how to make choices or live your life. Proverbs are cultural and have been passed down from generation to generation. Okay, so have you ever heard of birds of a feather flock together? So, you might have heard this saying when, as you get older, and maybe even now, it's really important to choose good friends that will help you to make good decisions because of this short, wise saying, birds of a feather flock together. It means that people who have similar values, if you choose friends that are making bad choices, then you will most likely also make those bad choices. Birds of a feather flock together. Our next figure of speech that we haven't talked about is an adage. An adage is also a wise saying about something that is believed to be true in a culture. Sometimes adages also contain a metaphor in their message. Here are some examples. A monkey in silk is a monkey no less. A penny saved is a penny earned. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Things are not always what they seem, and slow and steady wins the race. I bet you've heard at least one of these adages sometime. One that I've heard often is early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Basically, it's a wise saying that if you go to bed early, you'll be successful. So at this point, you should have already read the Hope Chest, chapter 1, and here are some idioms, adages, and proverbs in chapter 1 of the Hope Chest. Let's start with the first one. You should be in your Elevate book, and I'd like you to turn to this page in your Elevate book. It's called Chapter 1, Reader's Guide for the Hope Chest. And here we have a historical background of what was happening in history at the time that this book was written. You'll notice that all these things were mentioned in chapter 1. The Bolshevik Revolution. That was a civilian army took control of Russia from the Russian monarchy in 1917. Something else that happened during that time when chapter 1 was written, influenza of 1918. This was a disease that killed more than 100 million people across the world, also referred to as the flu. You know, it's really interesting that we're reading this as we are also experiencing an epidemic, the corona, which has not reached anywhere near 100 million people across the world. But we can have text to self connections as we're reading this book. Another thing that was happening during this chapter that was made mention, World War I. This began in 1914 with Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire fighting against England, France, Russia, Italy, Canada, and Japan. The United States did not join the war until 1917. This was an unusually brutal war that claimed more than 9 million lives. Another thing that happened during this time was the Susan B. Anthony Amendment. This was the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution that gave women the right to vote. And then also the League of Nations, the first international organization whose principal mission was to maintain world peace. So those were some things that were happening during that time, which is an important part of setting. It's important for us to know some background information to help us to comprehend the story better. Now, we're going to go ahead and jump down to the bottom, and we're going to be filling this out together. All of these are idioms, adages, and proverbs in chapter 1 of the Hope Chest. I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint so we can fill this out together. Let's get it so we can see it. Oh, come on. I guess that will have to do. Trying to make it bigger for you guys. All right. Looks like that's as good as it's going to get. What in the name of Sam Hill? The meaning of this figurative meaning is what in the world? Have you ever heard your mom say, what in the world is going on? Another way of saying that figurative language is what in the name of Sam Hill? Okay, another figurative language phrase that was said in chapter 1 was, it will make your head spin. What is the meaning, the literal meaning of this figurative language? Is it will make you dazed and confused. So you may have heard somebody say, oh, that book made my head spin. Or in other words, that book made me dazed and confused. Okay. The next figurative language that was in chapter 1, a threatening tower of authority. I think she was talking about her father. So what did she really mean when she said that? Well, that her father was tall and scary. Okay, the next figurative language gave her a jolt. Okay, or in other words, the literal meaning would be it surprised her. Okay, this is one that maybe you've heard before. Baptism by fire. What is the literal meaning of this? Any experience that tests one's courage or strength for the first time. Okay, so for example, a lot of jobs, when someone starts a new job, they say, oh, it's baptism by fire, because when you start a new job, you really have to learn a lot. It takes a lot of courage and strength when you have a new job. It's baptism by fire. Okay, our next figurative language, huge knockdown, drag out fight. Okay, the literal meaning of this is an extremely harsh or violent fight or argument. Okay. All right, the next figurative language, neither here or there, that was on page 15 of the Hope Chest. The literal meaning of that is not important. And then made violent snap, that was on page 17. The literal meaning of that is it made her lose her temper. Okay, so these are all figurative language sentences that helps us to comprehend what we're reading a little bit better. If you need to pause this video and finish copying these down in your Elevate book, go ahead and do that.